Never in my wildest dreams did I foresee becoming a woman ensnared by her own desires. In my heart, I have always envisioned myself as the epitome of a devoted wife and mother, a figure who navigates the stormy seas of life with unwavering resolve, making choices that reflect strength and integrity, even when the challenges loom large. Life possesses an uncanny ability to humble you, peeling back the layers to expose the depths of your own ignorance about who you truly are. This is the story of my betrayal, where my husband, my family, and all that I held dear crumbled into dust. A gripping saga of passion, desire, and the electrifying peril that comes with crossing the line. It all began with a moment I was never meant to see. My name is Claire, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the unwavering pillar of strength that everyone leans on. My life was a tapestry woven with threads of a rewarding career, a beloved home, and a marriage that, while not without its imperfections, stood resilient and enduring. Mark stood as my unwavering pillar. For 20 years we have walked the intricate path of marriage together. As the initial thrill of our early days transformed into a warm, familiar rhythm, I found myself never doubting the depth of his love or the strength of his loyalty. He was the one who never forgot anniversaries, who intertwined his fingers with mine in the dark of the cinema, and who always wrapped me in a cocoon of safety. That was the conviction that held me captive. Then came our son Jake, stepping into the spotlight. He was not one of us. At the age of 16, he entered our lives, a beacon of hope after years spent in the shadows of infertility. Jake drifted through a series of foster homes, each one a fleeting chapter in his tumultuous life. Upon his arrival, he carried an air of silence, a reserved demeanor that spoke volumes of the turmoil he had endured. Mark and I set out to offer him the stability and love he desperately sought, and for a fleeting moment, it seemed as though we were succeeding brilliantly. Jake transformed into a remarkable young man, radiating confidence and kindness, and my heart swelled with pride at the person he was becoming. As the years slipped by, an unsettling feeling began to creep into my consciousness. Jake wasn't merely connected to us, he was completely devoted to me. He followed me through the house, clinging to my every word like a relentless shadow. He would settle next to me on the couch, our legs brushing against each other, and a thrilling flutter would ignite in my chest, leaving me breathless. I told myself it was just a fleeting thought, a mere whisper in the back of my mind, easily dismissed and forgotten. He was merely a boy, untouched by the warmth of a mother's love, and I stood as the closest semblance of that affection he would ever encounter. A hidden depth lingered in the air, evident in the fleeting glances he cast my way, each one a silent whisper of untold stories waiting to unfold. That gaze held a darkness that no son should ever cast upon his mother. His eyes blazed with an insatiable hunger, a yearning that coiled tightly in my stomach, stirring guilt and an indescribable emotion within me. Mark caught sight of it too, but chose to remain silent. He cast me furtive glances whenever Jake was close, his jaw tight, a storm of frustration brewing just beneath the surface. He shifted uneasily, the weight of his discomfort pressing down on him, yet he fought to find the words, desperate not to wound Jake's feelings in the process. We wore our masks of normalcy, concealing the growing storm that brewed within the walls of our home, each day thickening the air with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. That night altered the course of fate forever. On a warm summer evening, Mark found himself lost in the flickering glow of his desk lamp, burning the midnight oil as the world outside faded into shadows. As the last bite of dinner lingered in the air, Jake slipped away to his room, leaving me alone to face the remnants of our meal in the kitchen. The house lay shrouded in an unsettling stillness, a weighty silence that enveloped every corner, suffocating the air with its oppressive presence. After finishing the dishes, I made my way to Jake's room, the weight of the day still lingering as I prepared to surrender to sleep. The door stood ajar, a sliver of darkness beckoning from within. The soft strains of music drifted through the air, beckoning me from within. I rapped gently on the door, but silence enveloped me in response. I pushed the door open, my heart racing as I leaned in to catch a glimpse, questioning whether he lay in slumber. The sight before me was nothing short of breathtaking. Jake sat on his bed, his back turned to the door, completely unaware of my presence lurking in the shadows. His shirt lay discarded, the jeans unbuttoned, hinting at a story waiting to unfold. What I stumbled upon was a private moment, a fleeting glimpse into a world I was never meant to enter. A whirlwind of shock and embarrassment gripped my breath, as an unnamed feeling surged within me, overwhelming my senses. In that moment, I should have turned on my heel, closed the door behind me, and erased every trace of what I had witnessed from my mind. I did not. I stood paralyzed, my eyes locked on Jake as his movements became increasingly frantic and filled with desperation. In an instant, as though sensing my presence, he whirled around, our gazes collided, and for a fleeting heartbeat, time itself seemed to freeze around us. Heat flooded Jake's cheeks as he jerked his hand away, fumbling to fasten his jeans with a frantic urgency. A crushing tide of guilt and shame surged through me, yet, intertwined with it was an electric thrill that coiled in my stomach like a serpent, tightening its grip with every heartbeat. "Claire," Jake whispered, his voice trembling with urgency. "I was completely unaware of your presence." Words escaped me, leaving a void of silence that echoed in my mind. My thoughts surged like a tempest, my heart thundering in my chest. Regret gnawed at me, a relentless whisper urging me to reach out, to say the words that lingered unspoken. I should have apologized, should have urged him to let go of the shadows of the past. I stood there, locked in a gaze with him, my body revealing secrets I dared not acknowledge. With a surge of determination, I crossed the threshold into the room, sealing the outside world away as I shut the door behind me. As I closed the door behind me, a chilling realization washed over me. There was no turning back now. Jake's room pulsed with an undeniable energy, the atmosphere charged and electric, as though the very walls were poised in anticipation. Jake sat on the bed, his face flushed, eyes wide with shock and a deeper emotion that churned in my stomach. "Claire," he whispered once more, his voice barely a sigh in the stillness. "Forgive me." "Oh no. Those words were never intended for you to see." I hesitated, the weight of my silence hanging in the air. My thoughts spiraled, each heartbeat thundering in my chest, a sound so fierce I feared he could sense it too. In that moment, I knew I should have simply turned around and walked away. Regret washed over me as I realized I should have simply apologized and urged him to move on. I did not. I moved in, my gaze ensnared by his, an electric tension crackling in the air between us. "It's okay," I whispered, my voice trembling with uncertainty. "There's no need for apologies." Jake's eyes widened, a flicker of fear crossing his face, as he felt the weight of vulnerability settle over him. Uncertainty gripped his heart, and a deep yearning for reassurance surged within him. But then his expression shifted, a shadow creeping across his features, revealing a hunger that was both unsettling and magnetic. He rose to his feet, bridging the gap that separated us. "Claire," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper laced with doubt, "you linger in my thoughts, an unsettling presence that I can't quite understand." His words pierced the air, sending a shiver down my spine and unleashing a tempest of emotions within me. A heavy weight of guilt pressed down, intertwined with shame, while an unnamed feeling lurked in the shadows, waiting to reveal itself. In that moment, a chilling clarity washed over me. I understood that this was a boundary I could never dare to breach. His piercing gaze and the heat radiating from his body left me utterly breathless. "Jake?" I breathed, my voice barely a whisper. "This can't be real. That can't be true." He shook his head, his eyes filled with a desperate yearning that seemed to echo in the silence around him. "I understand it's not the right path, yet my emotions are spiraling beyond my grasp. In a world filled with shadows and uncertainty, you are the sole beacon of light in my life, Claire. In a world where I often felt invisible, you emerged as the singular light, the only one who ever made me feel truly significant." His words cut deep, unleashing a torrent of guilt and shame within me. I felt the weight of the moment pressing down on me, a storm brewing in my chest. I had to find the strength to push him away, to utter the words that would shatter this fragile illusion. This could never happen. I simply couldn't bring myself to do it. My desire for him burned with an intensity that matched his own longing for me. In an instant, my hand moved forward, brushing against his face, my fingers gliding along the sharp contour of his jaw. Jake's breath hitched, and in that fleeting moment, he stood still, his eyes ensnared by mine. He drew closer, his lips brushing against mine with a deliberate slowness that ignited a spark of anticipation. It was a kiss laden with secrets, far from the innocent peck a son might bestow upon his mother. It surged with a ferocity that was both desperate and consuming, a torrent of longing and anguish that had been locked away for far too long. And in that moment, with a heart racing and the world fading away, I kissed him right back. In a fleeting moment, the world around me vanished into oblivion. My son, my marriage, two pillars of my existence, intertwined in a dance of love and challenge. All that existed was the intoxicating feeling of his lips pressed against mine. As he withdrew, we gasped for breath. Heat surged through our cheeks, a tumultuous blend of shame and longing igniting an unspoken tension between us. I felt the weight of my words as I prepared to tell him that this could never happen again. Yet the words lodged themselves in my throat, refusing to escape. I dashed to my room, the door slamming shut behind me as I locked it with a decisive click. As I lay in bed through the long dark hours of the night, my gaze fixed on the ceiling, I fought against the gnawing doubt that clung to me. I desperately tried to convince myself that it was merely a mistake, a moment of weakness that I could easily cast aside. Yet deep down, the truth always lingered within me. The kiss unleashed a thrilling, perilous fire inside me that I couldn't extinguish. I longed to erase the memory, to bury it beneath layers of denial. Yet a nagging truth whispered within me. It was merely the beginning. In the days that followed that electrifying first kiss, guilt and confusion churned within her, a tempest of emotions threatening to consume her entirely. I evaded Jake at every corner, plunging into work and chores with fervor to keep myself occupied. Amidst the chaos of my relentless schedule, his presence lingered in my thoughts, an unyielding whisper that refused to fade. The memory of his lips on mine played like a haunting melody in my mind, a vivid echo of my past choices and the desires that refused to fade away. Jake stood at a crossroads, his expression a tumult of conflicting emotions. He kept his distance, a silent observer in the shadows, yet I felt the weight of his gaze upon me each time our paths crossed in the same room. A palpable tension hung in the air, thick and suffocating, as if the very atmosphere was charged with an unspoken conflict between us. Mark's eyes locked onto the object, his heart racing as he reached out, fingers brushing against the surface. He had it, he definitely caught it. His vision was crystal clear. He remained quiet, and a chill of fear gripped me, preventing any mention of it. That night, chaos erupted. With Mark off at a work conference, the house felt eerily quiet, leaving me alone with Jake, the tension thick in the air. All day we circled one another, each step a careful dance around the palpable tension that crackled in the air. As dusk settled in, the air crackled with an intensity that threatened to explode. I filled a glass with rich, crimson wine, yearning for its warmth to wash away the day's burdens. As I sat on the couch, my gaze fixed vacantly on the flickering screen of the TV, the sudden crash of the door swung open, and Jake stormed into the room. At first, he remained shrouded in silence. He stood there, his piercing blue eyes fixed intently on me. Finally, he broke the silence, his voice barely above a whisper, laced with uncertainty. "Claire," he whispered, his voice barely breaking the silence. His voice, when it caressed my name, sent a thrilling shiver racing down my spine. "Shall we dive into a conversation?" As I took a slow sip of my wine, I felt the warmth spread through me, anchoring my racing thoughts and steadying my frayed nerves. "What is the story about?" He stepped inside, his hands lost deep within the confines of his pockets. Can you believe it? Deep down I was aware, yet the thought of facing it sent shivers down my spine. "Jake, this could end badly," I exclaimed, my voice trembling with intensity. "What unfolded the other night? That was a fateful misstep. We will ensure it never occurs again." He shook his head, anguish etched across his features. Every move was deliberate, a calculated choice that echoed with purpose. It certainly was not. For what felt like an eternity, "Claire, this weight has lingered within me." Doubt gnawed at me as I struggled to find the right words. Our gazes collided, and my heart thundered in my chest. "Jake, you are my flesh and blood. This is not right." "I am not your son," he shouted, his voice rising in intensity. "I don't belong to this family. You never raised me up. We share blood, but the bond runs shallow, a mere illusion of kinship." His words struck with the force of a gut punch. A fierce desire to challenge him surged within me, to dismantle his argument piece by piece. Yet, beneath that fiery exterior, a quiet truth lingered. He was right all along. Jake was never truly mine. He was a teenager we took in, a boy who, by the whims of fate, wove himself into the fabric of our lives, not by blood, but by the threads of circumstance. Yet, the undeniable truth lingered in the air. What we were doing was fundamentally wrong. Jake, I beg you, I implored, my voice trembling with desperation. This can't be real. That simply won't do. He stepped inside, his eyes aflame with an unyielding intensity. I am indifferent to the notions of right and wrong. My heart belongs to you, Claire. I feel deep down that your heart echoes my own. I struggled to voice my objections, but the words eluded me, for he was undeniably correct, stark and unambiguous. I loved him, not with the tender affection of a mother for her child, but with the fierce passion of a woman for the man who holds her heart. That revelation coursed through me like ice, sending a shiver down my spine. In an instant, before I could even process what was happening, Jake lunged toward me, capturing my lips with his once more. This time I remained steadfast, refusing to budge. In a whirlwind of confusion, I found myself crossing an uncharted boundary, my fingers weaving through his hair as the wine glass slipped from my grasp, shattering into 1,000 pieces on the floor. In that moment, the world around her dissolved into nothingness. This isn't my marriage, these aren't my values, and this isn't the life I battled to build. Jake was the embodiment of everything that mattered. It was the intensity of his presence that consumed me, leaving everything else in the shadows. We ventured far beyond the simple act of kissing. From that moment, everything began to unravel. In an instant, we found ourselves in my bedroom, a chaotic whirlwind of clothes scattered across the floor. It felt so utterly wrong, yet an exhilarating thrill coursed through me, drowning out any sense of guilt. After years of wandering through shadows, I finally felt the spark of life igniting within me, a deep yearning for connection and desire coursing through my veins. Wanted in a way that Mark hadn't stirred within me for what felt like an eternity. We found ourselves ensnared in a web of regret, a realm from which we could never escape. We surrendered to emotions that we both recognized as perilous and misguided. Jake's head lay against my chest, his fingers tracing intricate patterns over my skin. I should have been consumed by guilt, weighed down by shame. Yet, an unexpected calm enveloped me. This doesn't alter a single word I spoke, a desperate attempt to soothe my own turmoil more than his. This must never happen again. Jake's gaze flickered toward me, a spark of something unspoken in his eyes. His eyes held a depth and intensity that seemed to draw you in, captivating and mysterious. Claire is in their grasp. The relentless march continues, unyielding and unstoppable. A fire ignited within me, a desperate urge to challenge him, to dismantle his arguments piece by piece. Yet, as I opened my mouth to speak, the words faltered, slipping away like shadows in the night. I was left in silence, grappling with the weight of my own uncertainty. Deep down, I felt the undeniable truth of his words resonate within me. This was not just a fleeting mistake. A new chapter was unfolding, brimming with untold possibilities, a turning point for everyone involved. The weeks that followed that fateful night spiraled into a whirlwind of hidden truths and suffocating remorse. All day, Jake and I circled one another, an unspoken tension crackling in the air between us. Shroud Mark in mystery. Silence reigned, a heavy cloak draped over the room. Every heartbeat echoed, every breath felt like a secret. No hints, no slips, just the tension hanging thick in the air, waiting for the moment to unravel. Yet, as darkness enveloped the house and Mark drifted into slumber, the silence transformed into a fierce arena where conscience clashed with temptation.